truly African.
Well, hello and welcome to this very special edition of Wednesday Palaver. Today we're going to be discussing the situation in southern Cameroon, and we have elected to give this platform to southern Cameroonians, sometimes referred to as Ambazonians, who are exiled in Ghana to tell their own story. We are not going to be telling that story will be told by them, and it will be their own story. The presentation will be done by one of them, Mr. Trust Ngolifak. I hope I got the name correct. And he's going to be telling the story. And we shall give him up to about 20-25 minutes to tell the story. And thereafter, we shall come to a studio audience to raise questions, to make comments, and so on. And then we shall move on to our audience outside the studio. Our audience on Facebook, on YouTube, and on WhatsApp. So we shall be inviting our audience outside the studio to also raise questions and make comments. And then after that, we shall bring back to the microphone our brother Trust to answer some of those questions and to respond to some of those comments. But before we get to our brother Trust, we'd like to show a short 5-minute documentary. So MCR, if you're ready, short 5-minute documentary.
History has not forgotten that Buea was the headquarters of West Cameroon. History has not forgotten that Buea was the capital of southern Cameroon. And history has not forgotten that Buea was once the capital of German Cameroon.
Yes, here is Bafia in Moyuka subdivision. Today, Sunday, the 29th of April 2018, you can see people fleeing in their thousands. These are all internally displaced persons from Bafia who have fled after receiving news that the military are on their way to raid the village of Bafia in Moyuka subdivision. You can see them in their hundreds, men, women and children. You can see them fleeing into the bushes because of the approach of the military, because as every one of them knows, the military
bien.
Ladies and gentlemen, viewers of Pan-African TV at home and in the studio, just like it has been said, today the topic of the discussion will be the situation in Southern Cameroon. And this is part of the activity to mark a week-long activities for the commemoration of our 1st October Independence Day celebration for Southern Cameroon and Ambazonia. I would like to present the discussions dwelling on the pre-independence period before 1961, the independence period and post-independence period from the 1961s to 2016, and the independence restoration era, that is 2016 to date. In this presentation, Southern Cameroon would be often referred to as Ambazonia, which is the new name obtained from Ambas Bay in Victoria. And since the colonial masters failed to give this country or this state a name, and they described it rather as the UN Trust territory under British administration, a description has never been a country's name. The Southern Cameroon pre-independence era dated as far back as the late 18th century, where the Germans occupied the area around Southern Cameroon, that is La République du Cameroon, part of Chad, part of Central African Republic, and Congo as well. Nigeria was colonized by the UK to the east, to the west, and La République du Cameroon was colonized by France to the east. The territory was fast developing economically, industrially, in terms of food supply to its neighbors, and the UK noticed this. Around 1949, Shell Petroleum Company, around 1938, Shell Petroleum Company had just obtained a license to explore oil around Nigeria, which was colonized by the UK. And we all know Southern Cameroon as well was colonized by the UK. And in that respect, the UK immediately discovered that Southern Cameroon was also rich in oil reserves, both offshore and onshore. By 1949, the Southern Cameroons were integrated into the Nigerian administrative system so that the British could easily administer the rich oil reserves they had discovered. And around that same era, the Southern Cameroon's parliament representatives in the Nigerian House of Parliament pull out. They pull out because they noticed that it wasn't working. Southern Cameroons or Ambazonia was being integrated into the Nigerian system, which was a much larger body. And after the pullout, as of 1958, you see, the Frontier, who was on the opposition party in the Southern Cameroons, led the first ever peaceful, democratically elected, conducted elections around Africa by then, and an opposition party won and took over from the ruling party, that was Ndele, and Frontier became the then ever Prime Minister of Southern Cameroons. This led Frontier to prepare the country for independence, as the UN in April, the United Nations in April 1961 voted massively and in favor of Southern Cameroons to become an independent nation of its own as of 1st October. So that was just 6 months in preparation. Frontier had all this in hand to prepare the nation to become independent, a sovereign state. Within the 6 months, something happened, very dramatical, which has never happened in any other country around the world. France, that colonized the French-speaking Cameroon today, La République du Cameroon, made it possible that Southern Cameroons will then become independent by joining La République du Cameroon or by joining the already independent Nigeria. This was unheard of. And within 6 months, while the Southern Cameroonians were lamenting, 1st October was there. And the people had just one choice. The two options of joining either Nigeria that was already independent or by joining French speaking Cameroon, La République du Cameroon, that was already independent 22 months before. That is on the January 1960, was an embarrassment. And Southern Cameroonians, at least with the quest for independence, had no choice than to join La République du Cameroon because they had just pulled out from the Nigerian House of Assembly. We will get on to the independence era. Southern Cameroons had become Southern Cameroonians had a lot of resources that the world had already earmarked Southern Cameroon or Ambazonia of today as a territory that was fast growing. They had aviation companies, 3 airports. They had the West Cameroon Bank. They had their own independent police force. They had as well the power cam, and you can name it. A lot of those structures that showed that this was a developing and fast-growing territory. Americans had already done a report around that 1959 to say that Southern Cameroon is a territory that is very peaceful, it is politically stable, and it is economically viable. So, any decision that came from the UN to accept that Southern Cameroon should join La République in order to obtain independence because of viability was a crafted one. I would like to also specify that UK and the UN failed in giving the UN Trust territory of Southern Cameroons its independence, because joining La République or joining another state that was already independent wasn't a fair treat. So today we have as a motion the restoration of that independence. Southern Cameroon and the masters at that same time, given that France had already prepared something in mind, Ayijo was handpicked and groomed in France, and he came to Southern Cameroon and discussed with the Prime Minister at then, Foncha. And at Fumban conference, what happened was a total sham. They imposed a federated constitution drafted from France, from Ahidjo, on our people. And what is very embarrassing is that after the Fumban conference, there was never another sitting to look and to appropriate and to implement the constitution that had been drafted by France, which our people did not accept. Unfortunately, that constitution went into play for over 10 years. By 1972, these two states that had just come into a federation of equal parties, a two-state federation with neither the flag of British Southern Cameroon nor French La République du Cameroun, they now came into unity to form a state that was a federated state of two equal parts, had on their flag two stars. They had a federated constitution, but everything was washed out by 1972. Ahidjo managed by veto power to get into the parliament to make sure that everything was changed, even though on this constitution was engraved that to be a member of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, you need to be a member of one of the federated states. I ask the question today. There is no federated state. So, who are Cameroonians? Unfortunately, we have this question to answer. We ask the UN, we ask AU, we ask African countries, and we ask all human rights groups that what happened to this constitution? What happened to this agreement? A gentleman agreement between two people. What happened to it? We will not be able to answer that question here unless the UN comes to sit at the table with us to be able to answer that question. President Ahidjo further, handpicked President Paul Biya in 1982, and another gentleman who had also been groomed by the French-speaking government to continue the agenda of recolonization. And in 1983, President Paul Biya would march into the already occupied Southern Cameroon territory by French forces, by colonial masters. Since all the House of Chiefs had been dissolved, all institutions had been dissolved, President Paul Biya would march into Southern Cameroon and will want to brainwash the people. What did he say? I am a Cameroonian. And the people will repeat, I am a Cameroonian. I was born a Cameroonian. And they will repeat after him, I was born a Cameroonian. I will live and die a Cameroonian. And they will repeat after him. That was 1983. You can imagine. No other national will need to be reminded this if it wasn't an aspect of trying to brainwash our people, Southern Cameroonians, to think that they are Cameroonians. Without much to say here, the Prime Minister would be promised, a position of the Vice President of a much larger nation, and his position as Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon will be dissolved. He will be transferred from Buea, the capital of Southern Cameroon, to Yaoundé. And that was the end of everything. Later in 1984, a conclusion or the end to this, recolonization activity is a law we call today in Cameroon, the law that set Ambazonians or Southern Cameroonians free. President Paul Biya will single-handedly dissolve the union. After it had been dissolved from the Federal Republic of Cameroon to the United Republic of Cameroon, In 1984, President Paul Biya will single-handedly come out with a decree number 84/001, that said the name of the state would be changed from the United Republic of Cameroon to La République du Cameroun. Mark it. That is the name of the French-speaking Cameroon as of independence. But their territory did not remain the same. But they've gone round and they've come back to their name as of independence. This was well calculated and well implemented. On this day, Ambazonians were freed from the Union. And Southern Cameroonians realized that, especially Fongolji Dika, that we hail him so much today. He wrote to President Paul Biya, informing him of the dissolution of the Union by his famous decree of number 84/001. He was arrested, jailed, and exiled thereafter. A revolution began following that move by President Paul Biya, and that revolution was to restore the statehood of the Southern Cameroons since the Union has been dissolved. It was massively welcomed with arbitrary arrests, killings, torture, exile, and it has never ended till today. In 1990, the English-speaking community in Cameroon by then thought as well to do something. They came up with an English-speaking political party. One of the most, longest reigning political parties you can talk in the history of Cameroon. And unfortunately, elections were controlled by the ruling government, and as of today, the party is no more overwhelmingly respected or followed as in those days. This party was to address the issues of the English-speaking people, but it didn't work. But the revolution did not end there. 6 civilians were shot dead on the day of the launching of the party. May their souls rest in peace. Elections were won the following years and were rigged. And a continuous subjugation, marginalization, extortion, and relegation to the background of the English people continued. If you need to have a job, you need to study in the French-speaking universities. You need to go fill up the pockets of the landlords there to stay there, study there. If you need to, be respected in Cameroon, you need to study. You need to leave the French part of the country and go over to the French-speaking part of the country. That happened until 2016. Marginalization, subjugations, relegation to the background. You are nobody if you can't speak French. And enough is enough. The educational system was eroded from the English Anglo-Saxon, the Anglo-Saxon system of education to the French system of education. The judiciary was eroded as they started since 1961. And by 2016, the lawyers, October 2016, the lawyers took to the streets. It was unbearable. In every country, in every system, if the legal department is no more working, you can imagine what the rest of the people may have tolerated for 56 years. A week later, the teachers took to the streets. All civil societies, the transporters, the farmers, the traders, and everybody took to the streets. Schools were shut down, all institutions were shut down, and as a control measure, the government, as usual, responded with its French military, with a lot of heavy artillery on civilians who were marching with peace plans. And today, we can talk of people who are still in jail. 4 years later, we can talk of people who are still in jail, who were arrested on that day. They've never seen the four walls of a court. They've never been tried. They've never been told even why they were arrested. They were arrested and are in jail today because they are English speaking. Schools were shut down till today. You can imagine children who were supposed to have learned ABC for their first time in class 1 have never known what is ABC till now. And it doesn't mean anything to the state. Ghost towns and civil disobedience took rounds. And the people did this in demand of the population that was arrested on the 22nd of September, that the entire communities from the 13 counties that make up southern Cameroon came out in numbers. They went to the streets and they proclaimed the restoration of their independence. They said enough is enough. This was on the 22nd of September 2017, after a year long of civil disobedience, political disobedience, and nobody was saying anything. And people had been arrested and jailed, and they were not being released, neither tried. A week after commemorating 1st October, many more people were arrested when the dust had not settled of the number of people who had been shot dead, arrested on the 22nd of September. On the 1st of October, the population came out again at mass to say, even if you point all your artilleries at us, we are going to make it. And that's how videos went around the world, and many Africans even got to understand that Cameroon is made up of two different people who came together as English-speaking and French-speaking to make up this country. Almost everywhere we go, we are called French-speaking people. Meanwhile, we are English-speaking. The armed conflict generated just a few months after that. Within all this time, the southern Cameroonian population had just come up with a governing council and later an interim government. And because of the torture and arrest, so many people had fled into Nigeria. As we saw on the short video, we have more than 40,000 refugees presently as we speak in Nigeria. We have more than 50,000 refugees. We have more than 500,000 internally displaced people. We have more than 2 million in the bushes. This is in a population of 8 million people. You can imagine. Amongst which as well, we are about 300 and plus refugees or exiled persons now in Ghana. We have lost more than 3,000 loved ones. 3,000, and nothing is being said. The mainstream media don't cover this. We have more than 1,500 missing and undeclared persons. This is unheard of. More than 5,000 detained in the central prison in Yaoundé, underground dungeons, torture zones, and nobody is talking about them. Amongst which are leaders that were arrested in Nigeria, deported to Cameroon against all international refugee laws, and they suffered 8 months under dungeon with nobody, where nobody could account their whereabouts. They are presently serving life sentences in Yaoundé because they are English speaking. I can't end this without mentioning the number of girls, university girls, who were raped, and more than 100 of them were raped. And I want to just say that we have a history that is almost impossible for us to talk about it without shedding tears. The position of the international community in this crisis has been very, sober. Nobody's talking about anything. We listen to the mainstream medias. People are dying every day in southern Cameroon, but nobody is saying anything. We wish that southern Cameroon be talked about. The situation in southern Cameroon is not a situation that is acceptable. More than 3,000 are dead. Do we want 3 million dead before we talk about it? Do we want another Rwanda? The quest of the southern Cameroons, I must say, is to return to or to have a sovereign state. Everybody has a sense of belonging when he or she can truly, identify himself, his or herself, with some level of, nationality. If I ask you seated here, where do you come from? You will shyly respond to me because you don't want to be identified as Cameroonians. You want to be identified as Southern Cameroonians. That's the right to belong. As a matter of fact, there is a significant rise in the number of Southern Cameroonian refugees presently in Ghana. And we call on the authorities that be to do something, because we have not been, we have not been stationed like the Liberian refugees, the Ivorian refugees. But however, we are happy that we are at home. We feel so much at home here because we can speak English. We can interact with the Ghanaian community. That has been very welcoming. Most of us have been here for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, and they keep coming. The need to belong and to identify yourself, that makes you feel. That's why we are celebrating the National Day, our Independence Day. Come tomorrow, 1st of October, 2020. We are a people. We are a people. Southern Cameroonians and Ambazonians are a people. And we no longer want to be considered as second-class citizens in a union that our foreparents walked in as gentlemen. But today, we are being relegated to the wall. Thank you very much. Viewers, we call on you to, as well, give Southern Cameroonians the warmth that they need. Thank you.
Well, viewers and friends, we now come to the second part of the program, of the conversation. And as we get ready to go on Facebook and WhatsApp to pick up comments and questions and so on, we shall now limit ourselves to our studio audience. We'd like to know how many of you in the studio would like to ask questions or make comments. Just show by your hand. Those of you in the studio who want to ask questions or make comments. And please be reminded that you cannot spend more than 2 minutes because we don't have enough time. We have less than 30 minutes left, so they're going to have to be very, very brief. Otherwise, others cannot be here. So, by show of hands, let's see those of you who want to make comments and ask questions. I see 4, 5 hands. I see 6 hands. So I see 7 hands. That's 14 minutes already. So please make it 2 minutes. So we're going to start with Najib, and then we'll come to you, 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 and then we'll have Comrade Mensah round up. So 2 minutes each, and let's please be very strict because there are so many messages that are coming on Facebook and others. Please.
Thank you very much, Comrade Palaver. First of all, yes, I personally and the organization that we belong to, Socialist Forum, we associate with everybody the struggle of working people around the world, and anybody that is under any pressure that you shouldn't be under as a human being. We associate with them. However, I have a small reservation, even though I do much associate with you, I must express. In your presentation, you mentioned something about Anglophone, Francophone, and all of that. I think the struggle should go beyond that. I'm a Ghanaian and I do not see myself as an Anglophone. I don't welcome that. I'm an African, and that's what is most important to me. because the language I'm speaking now is not my language. It is a language that segregates me from you, which first of all is must be noted. Yes, the struggle of being integrated to where you belong as Cameroonians or as Africans, yes, we should have that conversation. But the idea of talking about French and English, first of all, for me personally, I think it should be put aside, because no matter how well I live, I can never be an Englishman. And I will always remember what the English has done to me. So should you remember what the French has done to you. So yes, you should try and fight to integrate yourself as Africans. And as Nkrumah says, let's try to build a new African identity for ourselves and our children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Comrade Pratt, and I'll be very brief. I just want to be a little bit emphatical about the atrocities committed by La République, the Cameroon military, on Southern Cameroonians. We are talking about 32,500 people killed as of today, and we are talking about 550 villages burnt. We are also talking about 125,000 refugees in Nigeria, in Ghana, and all over the world because of this crisis. And on daily basis, people just disappear. The military may just invade a community and bundle a bunch of youths, and the next day you don't know where they have gone to. Sometimes you can just see them lying in the stream somewhere, or maybe executed in the La République style. Maybe their hands are being tied up and they are shot dead. That's the experience we have on daily basis. We also have about at least 3,000 prisoners in Yaoundé, and Yaoundé, Douala, and in Bafoussam. 3,000 prisoners because of this crisis. We have situations whereby the military simply goes to a community and beheads citizens, like what happened in Fundong Samsoya. We have situations whereby the military killed a young baby of 8 months old simply because they went in search of the parents and the parents ran away, leaving the child behind. The military simply shot the baby on the bed, 8 months old baby. We also have a situation in Kendem, whereby the military simply came into a village, and as people were running away, the military simply picked up a 3 months old baby and fried the baby in oil. Those are the experiences we are having on daily basis. And the world is simply quiet about it. The world is quiet about it. United Nations is quiet about it. African Union is quiet about it. But I can't stop my presentation without thanking JJ Rawlings. At least he has spoke on several occasions about our plight, and we appreciate that. We are really, and I also cannot forget our comrade Kwesi Pratt, who has on several occasions talked about our situation. But let's not end talking. Africa needs to stand up and rise. We cannot watch fellow Africans kill each other. This is not right. Let us do something. Like what happened in Gambia. Let us not forget that before, Cameroon was part of West Africa, or Southern Cameroon was part of West Africa. So let us do something. And I don't have much time, but before I leave, I want to say special Independence Day greetings to His Excellency Siseko Ayuk Tabe, and all our prisoners of conscience in Yaoundé, not forgetting Mancho BBC, Tay Conrad. I know some of them may be listening to us now. I also cannot go without saying hi to our comrades in the diaspora, Eric Tato, Mark Barata, and Don Pasho, and all of that. Happy Independence Day to all of you. We are celebrating together. I beg, una whole grass. Yes, Tiboya, me on my whole grass. Thank you very much.
I am Esther, and I represent the Ambazonia women in Ghana. My cry is that we as women, we are crying and begging Mother Africa to rise up and stop this ungodly war. The greatest pain of a woman is to lose a husband, a wife, a loved one, a parent. The killing is too much, and we are tired. On behalf of all the other women, we stand to say that no matter what, we are going to survive to independence. So we plead on Mother Africa to rise up and help us, we the women, for we have lost a lot, and our tears are flowing to date as I speak. I don't have much to say. Thank you very much.
Good evening, televiewers. Good evening, fellow comrades in the house. I want to weigh in, to cue in, let me put it that way, on the silence of the international community on the plight of the Southern Cameroonians, the massacres, the genocides which is ensuing. I want to say it is, if we continue this way, we are going to see another Rwanda. Several years ago, about 20 years ago, the world came out to say, never again will it happen, but it is already happening in Southern Africa, in Southern Cameroon. Please, when we talk here, people may not actually know who we are. According to, I want to qualify us like Southern Cameroonians, qualify the people. Southern Cameroonians is a people as described by the United Nations. It means that we have the right to self-determination. That's the first thing. In the resolution 1608, there was a vote in the United Nations. In that vote, we had 64, in which the country in which we are, Ghana, voted in favor of our independence. There was 23 against and 10 abstention. So that actually makes us to be recognized by the world as a people and an independent entity. Then, when we came to Africa, sometime in 1964 in Cairo, the African Union actually agreed that we have a delimited boundary. That's what the resolution 16 sub 1 carries, because anybody's boundary is qualified from the day of independence. We had the French Cameroon, which is called La République du Cameroun, had their independence 1st of January 1960. We had our own in the 1st of October 1961. So Africa recognizes us as a people. Then, our country is always described as West Central Africa. I don't know where they came from with the appellation West Central Africa, but it is very clear that we are in the West Africa as part and Central Africa somewhere. That is the reason why we have schools. The West African Pan-African Institute of Development West Africa is found in Boya. So it is not by accident. We are West Africans by implication, because I have known at least one Ghanaian who happened to have been the director of that school. He couldn't have come from West Africa to head a school in Central Africa. So we are West African. Now, what's my problem here? When all of this is happening, the world stands to watch. I'm not inciting the West Africa to move in with the military. I know they have ECOMOG that moves into countries where there are conflicts. I'm not saying that. The world has to stand to stop this before it happens. We are not coming from space. We are in the world, we are in Africa, we are in West Africa, so the world has to stand. There was a time that we were in Enugu. I know the Republic of Cameroon has so much like diplomatic ties with Nigeria. Nigeria cannot do anything. But if Ghana, our host, can stand up and put it in international fora, I think something has to be done. Our people started coming here in the mid-60s. By 1965, there were about 1,000 Southern Cameroonians in Accra, which were studying the Nkrumah doctrine, Nkrumah's doctrine. So it's not an error that we find ourselves here. We are here because we know that this place is safe. Ghana is a democracy, and we are quite safe here. Thank you so much. We just wish that this should go ahead.
Thank you. I stand here today as a mother. The pain we have in our country. When there's killing, the mothers, the pain they have is too much because our blood is spilled on the ground and we are not happy. So I stand here to say that this problem of killing, we say no to killing in our country. Killing of our men, our children, raping of our little girls. We stand to say no, even as we celebrate the 1st October. I don't have much to say, but I hope that the country, Ghana too, is going to see to our problems and to follow up and see how they can also support us from this.
Thank you very much. I think it's so pathetic that listening to the presenter and espousing how injustice is perpetrated in southern Cameroon, I feel so bad, and all of these things are happening and the world is watching on. That injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I don't understand why they will always sit aloof and want escalations. Then they will be talking about interventions. Meanwhile, when signals are very clear that if care is not taken, it will flare up and consume all of us. And we also know that people take advantage. There are people who, in fact, glorify conflicts because they take advantage of conflict situations to make themselves worth, so to speak. But we call ourselves Christians, so-called. We call ourselves Muslims, so-called. We call ourselves religious beings. I cannot fathom looking at a fellow man and the fact that I know there will be blood running through the person and perpetrate that kind of injustice, heinous crimes that they are doing to that. So that's why I will ask of progressive forces to join hands with comrades like Uncle Comrade Kwesi Pratt, who's always on the radar, banging on the world to change a new leaf, to change the status quo, because the world is just but a very short period of time. Thank you very much.
Good evening, fellow Africans who are with us and those from outside. In fact, I'm with the Socialist Forum of Ghana, and our founding father, Kwame Nkrumah, has always made Ghana a beacon of hope and light for all Africans. And we can just sit down and watch people, the lives, future of fellow Ghanaians be trampled upon. So we shall call on all, especially African leaders, to put a stop to these heinous crimes which is being perpetrated on our fellow Africans. I think we are having similar situation in Sahrawi African Republic, and I think it's almost similar. And I think it won't be long when the wind of freedom, liberty will be granted to all of us, so that we'll be free. Thank you very much.
Well, there are a few messages, and I'd like to read those messages first. Oh, I'm wearing my glasses. The first message comes from...
It's almost similar, and I think it will be long when the wind of freedom,
The first message comes from a guy who is called James Soa. And James Soa simply says that I'm still in shock trying to figure out why our African leaders haven't seen the manipulation by these so-called Western powers to destabilize Africa. Maybe our leaders are too greedy and selfish and weep for Mother Africa. Paddy AG says Happy Independence Day to Southern Cameroonians and Bazonians. Augustine Shu says good job, comrades. Faustine says the story is very, very pathetic and the UN should come in. Akazil Ayimbila High Spirit says Happy Independence Day Southern Cameroon and Bazonians. It's quite surprising that Africans embrace English to French language and so on and so on. And there are a couple of messages also. Will the producer come for the phone, which is making so much noise? And then there are WhatsApp messages. Plenty WhatsApp messages, but we will not be able to read all because we are simply out of time. There are plenty of WhatsApp messages and we're trying to figure out how to read them. There's this one from somebody called Malcolm Sewonu Avuga from Adenta, and he says that in fact Africa is being ruled by head upside down so-called intellectuals who were imposed on us by imperialists, France being the number one. Terrorist and criminal countries in Africa, and we've had enough of these African leaders. We are running against time, so we are going to invite our brother Trust to come and sum up for all of us in a matter of 2 minutes. But before then, I'd like to throw in a question. I mean, a lot of times, when we listen to our brothers from Cameroon, and it doesn't matter whether they are from Ambazonia or South Cameroon, or they are from the Republic of Cameroon, there's a tendency to define themselves as English or French. And for those of us in these parts of the world, we can't understand that. We cannot relate to that. Because no African should be defined as English or French. We are not French, we are not English. We are Africans. You understand? So perhaps we'd like to understand what is it that makes Cameroonians define themselves in terms like English and French. Because that is part of our enslavement. This English and French thing is part of our enslavement. How does it become a bone of contention that actually leads to war and so on? It doesn't make sense to many of us. And it will be important for that to be explained. We can feel empathy with people who are oppressed, with people who are being killed, people who are being detained without trial and so on. That is our duty. But we are not going to fight a war on behalf of English-speaking people in Africa. It doesn't make sense to us, you know. So we have a few minutes, and it will be useful if we be able to touch on these matters for us.
Thank you, comrade, and thank all the viewers from home. I would just like to say that to throw an idea on this issue of English-speaking and French-speaking Cameroons. First, it's part of the manipulation that the colonial masters have put us during the pre-independence period to have this mentality. It's part of the but what makes sense is that the area, the territory that is referred to as Southern Cameroons are a people of themselves. Culturally, you see them distinct. They understand themselves and their way of eating and everything. They have their own culture. That is also why you see that when Britain came in from the west, they colonized that area. And when they made their territorial boundaries, these people said they were distinct. They refused to let go some of their brothers. And even though today we identify ourselves like that, it's only because the history books we have read are written by them. Everything we've learned using the English they left for us behind. But the greatest thing is we have not lost our culture. The culture of the Southern Cameroons is very beautiful. They remain a people traditionally, culturally, politically, they think and they reason the same. That's why this resolute, this time around, cannot happen in any other regions or so-called territories in the Republic of Cameroon. It's only the people of Southern Cameroons who are a people who before the coming of the Germans had existed as a people, trading among themselves, farming and intermarrying among themselves, that can actually, the only aspect they did, just like the brainwashers and took the independence and gave it to La Republique, the Cameroon, is that they also left us English, which is confusing us today. Thank you.
Well, viewers, all too soon we've come to the end of another edition of Wednesday Palaver. And today we listened to the story of Southern Cameroonians and also raised questions and got answers. For those of you at home, we'd like to thank you very, very much for allowing us into your homes. For those of you who watched us on social media platforms, we are most grateful to you. And we are particularly grateful to those of you who came into the studio and participated in this program. On behalf of the producers, and today we've been joined by Hawa, also as a producer, and this show had 3 producers, Hawa, Roseanne, and Loretta, 3 women producers for this show. On their behalf, and also on behalf of the director of the show, Adam Lumo, the cameraman, Pan-African Television, and everybody, we'd like to say very, very, very big thank you to all of you. And also to ask you, please, to keep your dial on Pan-African Television, because Pan-African Television brings you the best in everything, in sports, in entertainment, in news, in current affairs, and everything. So keep your dial on Pan-African Television. Until we meet again next week, it's bye-bye from all of us at Pan-African Television.
We'll be right back.